Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. In this video we will start to implement our Pokemon detail screen to load Pokemon info for an individual Pokemon. So we're actually done with the list screen. I want to start creating a package for that in our root package. New package called Pokemon Detail. In that package we will start to create the view model for that corresponding screen. So Pokemon Detail View Model, press enter, and that will be much easier than the view model we had for the list screen. So just inherit from view model and make that a HILT view model. We want to inject our repository in the constructor, import inject. That is a private val repository of type Pokemon repository, and really the only function that we need here is the function to get Pokemon info. So function get Pokemon info, that will actually be a suspend function. It will take the Pokemon name we want to get the info from, and it returns a resource of type Pokemon. Import that. And here we return repository dot get Pokemon info, and we pass our Pokemon name. Then we create a new Kotlin file here called Pokemon Detail Screen. Will be a file, and in here we can create a composable function which we call Pokemon Detail Screen. By the way, thank you for whoever wrote that awesome tip here that you can just type comp to create a composable function. Then that screen will take a bunch of parameters. On the one hand, the dominant color, which we get from the navigation arguments, so we don't need to calculate that dominant color again. We import that from the compose colors. We have the Pokemon name, type string, which we also get from the arguments. We have our nav controller, so we can actually navigate back when we click on the back arrow. We have a variable for the top padding, which is a dp amount. I'll default it to 20 dp, so import dp. That will be just the padding for this image here from the top side basically. I will default it to 20 dp, and we will also specify the Pokemon image size, also dp amount, and I'll set it to 200 dp. And finally we have a reference to our view model, which is of type Pokemon Detail View Model, and we set that equal to HILT navgraph view model. And that is it for the parameters. And in this function now I will use a fancy way of getting the state from our API. And you know that function if you've seen my Compose Basics playlist. So we want to get the current Pokemon info that contains all the information that we want to display on the screen. We want to use the produce state function. So this function, what it will do is, it will take an initial value that it will emit as state. So you can see it returns a state. And yeah, first it will emit this initial value. And then we have a producer scope here, which we can use like a lambda function, in which we can execute suspend functions like our network request, for example, to get the Pokemon info, and then simply assign the result of that to value. So since we're inside of this producer state scope, we can access this value here and simply change it like the value from a simple state object. So what this Pokemon info basically contains is just a resource of type Pokemon, like we have here now, a view model, resource of type Pokemon. What should the initial value be here? Well, we actually want to start emitting a loading resource, and I know I removed this in the previous video because I forgot that we actually need it here. Let's quickly add it back, and in here just have a class loading of type T, and that inherits from resource of type T, and we pass null for data and null for the message, and then just go back to PokemonDetailScreen, and here for the initial value we emit a resource.loading. Resource, need to import that. Yes, .loading, and it still doesn't know what type of resource that is, so what kind of data that resource contains. So we can simply pass Pokemon here. And then the errors are gone, and in here we can now set the value to our view model .get Pokemon info with our Pokemon name. And we still get an error here. Required resource loading. Oh, okay. That is an issue with these generics. Let's not do it like this. Instead, just set this to resource.loading and specify the generics here, because it wanted us to only pass a resource.loading and not resource in general. So here we pass a resource type Pokemon, and now the errors are gone. And so all this does now is it will emit, so this is now a state variable here, which will have this loading state by default. And once this get Pokemon info function is actually done here, then the value of this state will be set to the result, so to our response, or to an error if there is no internet connection. Then let's write our composable logic here. We want to have a box with a modifier that is set to our compose modifier .fill max size .background. You want to fill the background with our dominant color, and we want to apply some padding to the bottom, which is, let's click on one, you can see that little padding here. So we set the bottom padding to 16 dp. Oops. So the way we will structure this screen here is that we will have a Pokemon detail top section, I called it, that just contains here this gradient and this back arrow. Then we will have a Pokemon detail state wrapper, which will just be responsible for handling these different types of state, so the loading state, the success state, and the error state. That will just check, okay, what kind of state is it, and depending on that, display a different composable. If it's a success state, we will then have our just details section. We will get into this in the next videos. But one more thing for this video is actually this image. We need to also put this here in our PokemonDetailScreen composable directly, because it should be drawn over this white container here basically. So we cannot put it inside of this white container, because then the image would basically be cut off. So back in our Android Studio, let's actually start to write the logic for this image, which will be inside this box at the very bottom. This will take a modifier, modifier dot fill max size, and we will also align this box, so content alignment, we want to align this box, we will align the content of this box to, what is it called, alignment dot top center, like this. So that just means we want to align this image here in the top center of this box. And we only want to display this image if the Pokemon info is actually a resource.success. So if Pokemon info is resource.success and we get an error at one type argument expected. Oh, because we don't refer to the value. Pokemon info is still the state here. So let's just go after this lambda block and set this equal to a value. So we actually refer to the resource and not to the state. So in here, we want to take our Pokemon info dot data, which refers to the actual Pokemon, dot sprites, which contains the images, dot let, and if that sprite contains something, which is usually the case, we want to display a coil image. So we want to actually load that image from the network, because this sprites contains the image URL to the Pokemon. We can remove that lambda block, and in here we will set the data equal to it dot front default. So that's the default image from that Pokemon. You can see that's a string, so the URL to that image. We want to set the content description to Pokemon info dot data dot name. We don't need the null check here. We want to set crossfade, or is it just called fade? Fade in. Well, we want to set fade in to true, so we have a little fade effect. And we want to apply modifier dot size. We want to set a fixed size, which is our Pokemon image size here, and we want to offset that a little bit by exactly this top padding amount here. So we want to shift that a little bit down. So we only set the Y offset to our top padding. That's it for the image. Let's write another composable here, which is called Pokemon Detail top section, as I said. So if you remember, that is just this section with that little gradient and that back arrow. We want to have a reference to the nav controller, because we need to be able to pop the backstack in that composable when clicking on that back arrow. And we want to be able to pass a modifier in from the outside, and we set that to the default modifier. This will be a box again, which will contain all of our content here. We want to set the content alignment to top center again. And we want to apply a modifier. We will use the modifier we passed here, dot background, and here we now want to apply the gradient, which we can use brush.vertical gradient for, in which we can define a list of colors for the different gradient colors, starting from color.black to color.transparent. So this will be our top color, and this will be our bottom color, so that we get this gradient effect. And then here inside of that box, all we want to have is that back arrow icon. So we can use icon. We don't want this overload. Instead, we want to set the image vector to an icon here. So we have this icons object here, with which we can simply refer to all these default icons built into Compose. So icons.default.arrow back. You can see tons of icons here. Content description will be null here, and we want to change the tint, so the color of that icon to color.white. And we want to set the modifier to modifier.size, setting it to 3060p. We want to offset it a little bit by 16dp in X and Y direction. And we want to make it clickable. When we click on that, we simply want to use our nav controller and call pop backstack. And then let's write our next composable. That is it for the top section. The next one will be this state wrapper, as I said. Composable. Call it Pokemon Detail State Wrapper. It will take our Pokemon info, which is a resource of type Pokemon here. It will take a modifier set to the default modifier, and it will take another modifier for our progress bar actually, so we can define a different modifier for that. loading modifier, also of type modifier, set to modifier. And all you want to do in here is you want to check when Pokemon info is a resource.success. We want to display this composable that we put in here. If it is a resource.error, we have this block. And finally, if it's a loading resource, we have this. When we're loading, we just want to display a circular progress indicator. We want to give it a color of material theme, colors.primary, and we set the modifier to our loading modifier. And if we have an error resource, we just want to display a little error text. So simply a text. The text will be Pokemon info.message. Assert this is not equal to null. It will never be if it's an error resource. Set the text color to a color.red. And here I will apply our other modifier. This one. And in the next video we will write the logic for this success case. Let's actually also scroll up and implement these two composables in our Pokemon detail screen. First of all, the Pokemon top section. Here, let's move that into the next lines. Pass on nav controller. And the modifier dot fill max width. And we call fill max height, and we want to fill 20% of our screen, so that we really only get 20% here for that gradient. And we again call align to top center. And then below that we will have our Pokemon detail state wrapper, which will take our Pokemon info on the one hand, and on the other hand it will take two modifiers. The first modifier will be this one, modifier dot fill max size. We will apply padding, so this will now be this white container here actually that we define. For the padding, we actually want to apply these side paddings here, a little bit of extra bottom padding and a little bit more top padding. So the top padding will be calculated by some amount of padding here plus half of the height of the Pokemon image. So let's see how that works. The top padding will be our top padding that we pass plus our Pokemon image size divided by 2f. And the start will be 16 dp, end will be 16 dp, and bottom 16 dp. And let's put these into separate lines. It will have a shadow. I will set the elevation to 10 dp and give it a rounded corner shape of 10 dp. So these will be these rounded corners and this shadow here. Then clip this shape, also using our rounded corner shape. Oops. 10 dp. Call background to give it a white background color, at least for light theme. We can use our theme colors. Dot surface I will use for that. Then we apply some padding again, so 16 dp. And we align this here in this box at the bottom center. So that is a quite big modifier here. Let's go through it again. So we first fill our maximum screen size. Then we apply some top padding here. That is just our top padding variable here that is set to 20 dp. And we add this half of this image size to that top padding, so that is 100 dp. So in total we have 120 dp padding here. We have these little side paddings of 16 dp, and the bottom one we have this shadow. We clip this, so we have a rounded corner shape. We have the background color of white, or a dark color for dark mode, we apply 16 dp of padding again to push in that content into this middle of this container basically, and we align it in the bottom center, so this white box sticks to the bottom basically. And then only that loading modifier is missing, so we pass that here, loading modifier dot, set the size to 100 dp for that loading bar. We want to align it in the center, and we can actually just copy this padding block and also apply it for, and that is it for this video. No, not for this video yet. We want to still go to main activity and actually pass that composable here, our screen. So here in our PokemonDetailScreen route, which will be a PokemonDetailScreen, and dominant color will be, let's do it like this. Dominant color will be our dominant color. And the Pokemon name will be our Pokemon name here. And if it's null, we just pass an empty string. And we want to attach our nav controller. And right now I'm not even sure if this string is always in lower letter, because it might come in with problems in our API with if this starts with a capital letter. Let's just convert this to a lower case basically. Add a null check and add local.root. Apart from that, let's actually launch the app, because I think this should now work. So let's see, Charizard, and okay, that looks a little bit weird, but that is actually how it should look like. Our back arrow is misaligned, that is the only thing. So let's quickly fix that, going into our Pokemon detail screen, to this Pokemon detail top section, and this is actually set to top center, but we want to set it to top start instead. So let's relaunch this. And click on a Pokemon. Then you can see now the back arrow is aligned correctly, and the rest seems also to work fine. We don't see our white box yet because we don't have content here inside of our state wrapper here for the success case. We only have that for our error case. We could actually see this when we turn off internet connection. Then you can see now we see the box because we apply the modifier here for the text. But for the success case, we don't have a composable yet where we apply this modifier to. That's why we don't see it in that case. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Give this video a like, leave a subscribe, and I will be happy to see you in the next video again. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.